Team Fortress 2 rebalance videos. Put these two things together and you get like 80% of what TF2 YouTube has been for like the past 7 years pretty much. But I feel like it's time for me to throw my hat into the ring, and I have a few ideas. Some pretty generic, simple, boring, and others I think have a lot more potential. The concept of this is, of course, as you can tell by the title, one weapon per class. There's a couple classes which made it difficult one way or the other. Either I wanted to change another weapon really badly, or I didn't really have any weapons that I felt I had any good ideas for. So ultimately, I landed on these 9 weapons. Starting off with, I think this is going to be a pretty uncontroversial, if somewhat tame change. Scout's going to get a buff to the Sandman, of course. You know, it's the Sandman. Everybody knows this weapon sucks. Even if you don't know TF2, you know that it's either amazing, in that you are thinking of the old Sandman, or you know that it sucks, in which you're thinking of the Sandman. But I think it only needs a small tweak here or there to be pretty competitive among the melee options for Scout, which are pretty meek, all things considered. And I'm going to do something very simple, and that's increasing the damage of the ball from 15 to 30, dropping the recharge time by 2 seconds, and removing random crits from it. I want this to be a mid to long range finishing tool for kits like the Range Flava Flay / Bleed Scout, except I want it to be an alternative to the Rap Assassin with more burst damage but less damage over time. Additionally, by shortening the cooldown on the ball, it allows for him to pump it out more often and more in sync with the Cleaver, which I actually played the mid-range Scout with this build, with the Sandman, Cleaver, and Shortstop, and that was actually a lot of fun. And I think this simple change would make it even more fun. Just a simple damage boost. But one thing I won't be giving a damage boost to is Soldier's Liberty Launcher. I actually have something I think would be a very interesting change for the Liberty Launcher. See, it currently has a 25% damage reduction, and while I would love to give it a switch speed bonus, that was my first thought, that's already been done before. So instead I'm going to increase the push force dealt by 25% to match the damage penalty. Realistically, I think it's closer to 33% is how much it would actually need to increase, but if you notice, I didn't say on enemies. This means stronger rocket jumps, more mobility, more speed, and that's really what I wanted to lean into with this design for the Liberty Launcher. Increasing your movement, increasing your dive bomb potential, and your map traversal. Sacrificing damage for mobility is a lot more interesting when that mobility is increased in availability, in safety, and in distance. So this becomes a sort of rocket jumper side grade and doesn't step on the toes of other rocket launchers, and this was really the only thing I could think of to make that not be the case. If I wanted to give it another rocket, then why would you ever pick the airstrike? If I wanted to give it less damage, then it's suddenly competing with the likes of stock, and again, the airstrike. If I wanted to give it any other utility, it feels like it's competing too much with the other rocket launchers. This brings back some of the push force on enemies and allows for the reserve shooter combo to be a little bit better while also increasing your own mobility, and I think that that's pretty sick. You know what else is sick? Bleed for 8 seconds. And that's what I'm going to give the Sharpened Volcano Fragment. Bleed instead of Afterburn. And I know, haha, funny, bleed, but looking at it, that's pretty sharp and serrated. I'd bleed a lot if I got hit by something like that. And also, stacking Bleed and Afterburn might be a pretty interesting combo, so that's why I'm also giving it a 30% faster holster speed bonus. But then you can combo a melee swing into your Afterburn with something like a flare, or even just a puff of your flamethrower, and increase the damage over time and increase your overall DPS by an additional 8. I think the existing damage penalty is not the end of the world for the Sharpened Volcano Fragment. And I hope that those changes alone, simple changes, switching the damage over time to a different type, allowing it to stack with the Afterburn, and enabling better combos, combo pyro, I hope that that would be positive for it. Plus, this does help to mitigate the Degreaser's Afterburn penalty just a little bit if you want to run a true combo playstyle. Instead of going for Puff into Smack, you go for Smack into Puff. Moving over into the defense classes, Demo Man's Lock and Load. I think that we all know that this weapon has been dogged on in the past, but over the years has seen quite a rise in how people think of it. It's getting better and better in the public perception every day, and I'm very happy about that as I'm a big fan of the lock and load. And I tried really hard to come up with something that was something healthy and wasn't going to step on the toes of other YouTubers, and this is kind of what I came up with. I'm going to increase the projectile speed bonus a little bit from 25 to 30% to make it even stand out further from the other grenade launchers. You could argue that this is too fast, but I think that it's a healthy thing to make it move even faster. At least I hope, because there's so few other ways to change this, and I don't want to just say, oh, give it the damage against buildings to everyone, because that sounds like hell. And the other thing I implemented is a 50% resistance to damage resistances. If you're shooting a wrangled sentry, 3 grenades will go from dealing, what is that, 120 damage, 240. So now the engineer needs to handle it perfectly. You can now 1v1 a wrangled engineer sentry with the lock and load, as well as obviously things like the Vaccinator and the Dead Ringer being less effective, but those are side things. The main thing is the interaction with the Wrangler. By giving Demo Man an unlock that beats out the Wrangler 1v1, it means that the matchup is skewed in his own favor again, which I think is how it should be. A resistance partially to damage resistances, not all the way, because if you go all the way, then 2 grenades will kill an engineer's sentry despite having the Wrangler. 3 are necessary with this change, and if you have 2 engineers, one wrangling, the other repairing, they can win that 2v1 against your spam damage. So it means that a 1v1, a pure 1v1, Demo Man is advantaged against a wrangled engineer. But if you add another player into the mix, things get a little bit dicey. Moving on to heavy, this is my first one that I'm really proud of, and I have had a lot of time to think on this one. This is something I've wanted to change for a long time. It's the Delocus bar. Now I've seen a lot of people saying make him eat it faster, make the overhealth stack with overheal, stuff like that. Nah, I got a better idea. Support heavy. The locust bars that are thrown now recharge twice as fast, and you can have up to 3 Delocus bars on the ground at once. Support heavy. This lets heavy put down Delocus bars for his teammates and have general area healing. I think this is pretty cool, and it's something that none of the other unlocks can match up to. And it gives a new playstyle for heavy. Support heavy. And at the same time, this doesn't just let him overheal his medic pocket constantly. You don't get that 50% from a sandwich that is instant and helpful. You do have multiple chances to get rid of afterburn on your medic if you leave them on the ground, but it requires foresight, it requires forethought. It requires you be prepared and have an idea beforehand with the Delocus bar. Almost as much as you need to plan ahead for shooting the Thompson on Engineer, am I right? Thompson 6000 is probably top 3 worst weapons in TF2. There's not much worse than this. But I think it's only a few small changes away from being pretty viable, and I know that this is a very generic set of changes, but this is what I would personally go for. First off, buff the speed. 50% speed increase to Thompson shots. It's a no-brainer. It's what should have been done this whole time, let's be real. And I'm going to make the projectiles pierce allies alone, not also enemies, because I think having AoE damage with a engineer primary might be a bit toxic and pretty unhealthy for spam, so just single target, mid-range shots, while also dealing slightly more damage. I'm going to be bumping it up from 60 to 70. This will let you 2-shot light classes from farther ranges, not needing to worry so much about damage ramp up, but it's never going to allow you to 1 to 2 tap medics unless you are very, very close. Plus, a random crit will actually kill a soldier, which is very funny. I'm also going to increase the reload speed to match up to the shotguns, and obviously with all these changes, no more removal of Uber and Cloak. Those were just dump stats that have been there forever and should never have been added in the first place. Again, I think the Thompson is pretty close to being a pretty decent weapon, and I think that you only need some small numerical tweaks to make that happen, and making it a mid-range fight option rather than a spam or a disruption, whatever the hell it is now, it's a lot better than this. Another weapon that really needs improvements is the Sniper's Classic. There are some ways you could change this, like making quickscopes an option. Don't. There's also removing the body shot damage penalty. Don't. So instead, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rework the no headshots until fully charged stat to be no headshots until half charged. This will allow you more flexibility in landing headshots without being so flexible that you're just doming people with insane quick scopes. Still worse in sniper duels as an example. Still worse for killing medics as an example. But this will make it a little bit more consistent and just more usable. I don't need it to be the best sniper rifle. I just want it to be a little bit better, and half charge headshots should be the Goldilocks zone, I think, for making that happen. As for medic, though, I thought a little bit about this. The Vita Sauce sucks. We can all agree that. Reducing your survivability for dying, giving you an advantage, is probably the single worst upside in the game. I genuinely think I would call the Vita Sauce bottom 5 weapons in the game, alongside the likes of the Gas Passer and the Bison. Because at the very least, if you ignore those weapons while you're playing on those classes, you can still function. You're missing other weapons, but you're okay with that. You're at least playing the game in a semi-normal way, except for maybe with the Gas Passer, because you don't have a secondary for a full minute at times. As for the Vita Saw, I'm going to actually keep the health downside 10 health, bring you down to 140. Instead, I'm going to do a pretty generic change. I'm going to get rid of the organ mechanic. I'm just going to make it so then whenever you hit somebody with your melee, you heal for 25. That's it. Simple, normal, easy changes. Nothing too crazy. One more small thing, because I'm not sure if this is enough. 15% increased melee range. Just a tiny bit longer than the average melee will allow you to hit those melee swings from slightly further away, from slight increased safety. If you're able to heal yourself off melee swings, I don't think they should be especially good, and I think there should be some risk to it, but I think that the 10 less health is that risk, and I don't think this would overshadow the Uber Saw, because hitting melee to get 25% Uber, I would take that over 25 health at the cost of 10 base health, personally. Finally, this is my biggest change in the video. This is something that I have wanted in the game for so long, and I'm giving it to the Enforcer. First things first. That 20% damage boost while disguised, it's going to a 30% damage boost all the time, and it's 50% while you're disguised. Meaning that before ramp up, your disguised shots are dealing 60 damage, and your undisguised shots are doing 52. Way easier to get kills when factoring in ramp up. Additionally, I'm going to reduce the spread by 50%, and remove the slower firing speed downside. This is the best revolver in the game right now. So what is the downside that I give it? Backstabs while you have the Enforcer equipped only deal regular crits. That's my downside. Gun Spy. Mandated Gun Spy. With a reduced spread, increased damage, and removal of the firing speed penalty, the Enforcer becomes a good mid-range dueling option. Gun Spy back on the menu. The cost, though, is a complete removal of your ability to play regular standard spy. No more backstabs, no more kunai, no more big earner. You completely neuter your ability to get kills on heavy, demo, soldier in particular, but at the same time, if you find a weakened enemy, you still have the opportunity to go for that backstab, as it is your biggest source of immediate damage. 120. That's why I went for this chain. 120. You can never kill a full health light class, but any chip damage makes that knife way more viable. So yeah, those are my my 9 weapons I would change. Honorable mentions go to the Travelman Shiv. Give it like 20 more damage. And the other one I wanted to talk about was the Man Melter. It should let you suck up your own flames. You can hit somebody with it at close range, then suck up their afterburn, and then hit them with a crit shot. I just think that'd be cool. It'd be worse than the stock flare gun most of the time, but I still think it'd be cool. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.